So today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to first talk about what static versus dynamic websites are. We're going to learn a little bit about what Git and GitHub are and is. And then we're going to create together a really simple GitHub Pages website. And that's going to be the hands-on activity that we're going to do together. But then hopefully we're going to have time for me to share my screen and show you what it looks like to really tour Jekyll as an option for creating static websites, to use that as a static site generator from the command line and on. So hopefully we'll have fun together today. And I'm glad, thank you saying that there's no problem, y'all. That's really great. All right, so I wanted to say a couple of things about dynamic versus static websites. Some of you may know this and some of you may not know this, so I wanted to start here. Dynamic websites are usually managed by content management systems like Drupal, WordPress, Omeka. Some of you may have had experience with some of those, even if it's just as a WordPress.com blog site. That's a content management system because what it does is it's pulling information or content from a database. And it's doing that by using server-side scripting languages. And I have a couple listed here, some like PHP, JavaScript, Python. And then it's using an HTML and CSS layer for content display. So you can see that that's a really complex kind of system for building and displaying websites and web pages and projects on the web. Static websites are different. For those of us who might have coded HTML websites years ago from scratch, that's exactly what a static website is. It only uses client-side HTML and CSS, so there is no database. It delivers the same content and the same display to all users, no matter what. So there's no extra layers to make it different from mobile or different from different browsers. And because of that, because there's no database, and because it's built using minimal website files, it means that the loading time is really, really quick. It means that internet connection speed isn't an issue for those that are trying to access your site. And that's what's, that is attractive to some people that are trying to kind of approach creation of project websites or professional websites from the point of view that everyone can access them. And we have a, thank you, Monica, good to see you. And then we have a question that I'll answer just really quick. So HTML is, one of the basic building blocks of building websites. It's hypertext markup language, and CSS is a cascading style sheet. And what that is it's something that kind of sits on top of your HTML to make the HTML pretty. So you don't need to know much HTML and CSS to build a static website. And one of the things that I'm going to show you today in our hands-on activity is a way where you don't even need to touch that kind of code to create a website that is a static website from scratch. That isn't a content management system, so you don't have to host it on a server. You can just host it on GitHub. And I hope that answered questions, but we might be able to get back to that at the end of today. The other thing about static websites is that they're easy to update, they're easy to maintain, and they're really easy to preserve and back up. So if, for instance, you are thinking that your, I just lost my notes, but if you're thinking that your website will eventually need to be sunsetted, right? And you want to be able to download it quickly and put it in something like a library repository to sustain it for future generations of scholars, then a static website is something that you can do that really, really easily with. It's also relatively easy to update and maintain because there's no database. It's also really, really hard to hack because there's no database. When you don't have a database, hackers really don't have a whole lot to mess with. And anyone that has ever run a WordPress or a Drupal installation on a server knows that you're constantly fighting Viagra ads and hackers that are trying to inject ads into your database. So that's something that you can avoid completely with static websites. And now I want to transition kind of quickly to talk about what Git is. I want to first start by maybe asking the chat a little bit. Is anyone familiar with Git or any other versioning system, version control system? If not, I mean, great, because then we can just start from what Git is, because Git is a little bit different. And as you guys might be typing, so Git is a distributed version control system for tracking changes in source code. Really what that means is that it's a way to take all of the files that you want to put online and track them in a really systemic way, so that if you have people that you're inviting into your project, you want to work on like a multi-person team, and you want to coordinate that work, Git makes it really, really easy. The difference between Git and previous versions of version control systems is, and this is from the Git handbook, and I really love this last sentence that's on this slide, Git thinks of data like a series of snapshots in time. So things like Subversion and Perforce, what they used to do is actually take like a snapshot of only one file. What Git does is it takes your whole project or your whole website, and even if you only changed one line in one file of the 50 files that you have on your website, it will take a snapshot of the whole website, kind of. And by kind of, I mean what's on this next slide. But I do, before I go to the next slide, want to say the reason why you might want to version a project that you're working on or a website that you're working on doesn't necessarily have to be because you're coordinating on a team or something like that. It could just be because you want to track your own work. And it's very similar to how, and I think everyone does this, or at least I do this quite a bit, we save like resume 1, resume 4, resume 84, right, on of Word documents on our computers. So this is, Git is a way to do that and create snapshots and versions that you can roll back to and see what you did 4 months ago and et cetera with your project website or your professional website or whatever code you're writing in Git. And so I mentioned before, this is an image from the Git handbook, and that link at the bottom of the slide will give you some more information and context for this. With Git, every time you commit, you're saving the state of your project. So you're taking a picture of what all your files look like at that moment in time. Git doesn't really share the file. If the file hasn't been changed, it doesn't save the file again, but it does save the previous version of it and it links to it. That's a lot of kind of theory about what version control is and like why Git is better than other version control things. And if anyone wants to talk about that later, I would love to talk about that later. But one of the things I wanted to mention, and that we might hit on again if we get to it, is that version control in Git has files, project files, in 3 stages. You can describe them in 3 stages. The first stage is when you modify a file. So when you change anything, even if you're just adding like a period at the end of a sentence that you forgot, that's a modified file. When you then stage that file, what you're telling the Git repository is that, hey, I made a change. I'm not sure about it yet, but I've made it. When you commit that file using Git, you're saying, I'm ready for that commitment to be live on the internet. We might come back to that again, but it's kind of one of the basic core principles of version control in Git is that their files are always in one of 3 phases. That gets more complicated as you work with teams, but that's the main workflow for that. And again, if there are any questions or if anyone's super interested in Git, let me know a little bit more. It's gonna both become kind of apparent what that looks like and complicated once we have our hands-on exercise in a minute, which is now. So before, I can recommend a few resources if anyone really wants to dive in Git or you're interested in using Git, not just for a project website, but also to kind of build code out. Please let me know. Again, the Git handbook, which is at git-scm.org, it's fairly easy to follow. It has a lot of those kind of visualizations, so if anyone is interested. And now I'm actually, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm gonna exit out of this. And I'm going to go to my GitHub page. So this is the part of the workshop where if you'd like to follow along with me and click through with me, this is where I would recommend you do that. So hopefully your page looks a little bit like what my page is. And I'm gonna start going really slow because I know people might be kind of going back and forth between my shared screen and their browser window where they have Git open. So I'm gonna slow down as much as possible and pop into chat. This is where please pop into chat if I need to slow down even more. But this is what my dashboard looks like. And you can see I've been added to an organization, but this is what my dashboard looks like. And here are some of my repositories here. You can see that I was doing a little bit of test work earlier today. What your dashboard will probably look like is something incredibly similar. You will have this new button right here next to repositories on the left-hand side of your screen. And what I would recommend we do now is explore what it means to create a new repository. And what a repository is in GitHub, on github.com, is where a project lives. It's where your code lives, where you can change it, you can push changes to it, you can change it right in the interface, you can share it with people because it's public, you can keep it private and not share it with anyone. But I'll go ahead and click that new green button. And you get to this create new repository stage. So there was a question about how you don't have a dashboard. Where do I get one? Someone's in Git, but they don't see a dashboard, which I will go back a little bit. So if you're signed into GitHub, and the way you can tell you're signed into GitHub is if you go up to the upper right-hand corner, you can see like there's a little picture of me, right? But hopefully you can, yeah, see that picture. If your dashboard, when you sign in, it doesn't look like this, I'm not sure what went wrong. If you want to pop in chat at any time and tell me what you see when you sign in to Git, let me know. For now, I'm gonna move on and we might be able to troubleshoot as we go. I'm gonna click that new button again. And we're on that create new repository page. So there are a couple of things about this page that are important. One is that you make sure that the owner is set to you. So if you, like me, are part of organizations, you will see those organizations here. And you wanna make sure if you're creating a GitHub page or a personal website that the owner is you, whatever your username that you chose was. And then the repository name is actually going to be the name that people use to get to your URL. So you want to use something that is descriptive of what you'd like to do. So I'm going to imagine that I want to create a professional website. So I'm going to say my repository name is just liz.grumbach. And it says that liz.grumbach is available, which it should be because I don't have anything else. I'm gonna make it public. If you click on private, you can make it private. Sometimes, depending on how many repositories you have to pay to make a lot of repositories private, but we're gonna make it public for now. And I'm going to say initialize this repository with a README. You almost always want to make sure that you have a README file when you're creating a repository. All that README is it's a place where you can describe for other people who might see your code what your project is about. And I don't see anything else in chat, so I'm gonna go ahead and click the green button that says create repository. And we have a repo, which is great. We have a README file. It has a title, which is the title I wanted, which is Liz Grumbach. It's definitely me right here. There's only one branch. So all little things that might or might not make sense right now that I usually check, right? To make sure that everything went right when I created this repository. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to use the automatic page generator that github.com now has, which is actually new. And I don't know when the last time I tried to do this in the interface, but it must have been like 4 years ago, and this was not here 4 years ago. So this is really exciting. We're going to use that automatic page generator to do everything in the browser interface that we need to do to create a GitHub Pages website. So this is an option for anyone who doesn't want to open up a command prompt or a terminal window and download code. Anyone that doesn't want to learn how to use like git commands in the command line or doesn't know how to do that, this is for y'all. We're gonna go to this kind of menu up here, and the last option is settings. If you click settings, there's gonna be a whole lot of stuff that pops up. But if you slowly scroll down, and I'm happy to talk about some of the stuff that's on here later if anyone has questions as you scroll through, but what's most important here as you scroll down, and I'm doing this fairly slowly, is there's a section called GitHub Pages. Again, this is fairly new, at least to me. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited to tell you guys that this is an option. So GitHub Pages is designed to host your personal, organization, or project pages from a GitHub repository. So what it does when you enable this is it takes your repository and basically puts it on the web and hosts that website for you. Again, this is a static page, not a dynamic website, but it's super easy. What we're gonna do is underneath the source section, that drop-down menu that says none, you're gonna move that to what I'm gonna call the primary branch. And I try really hard not to use words like master when I'm talking about things like Git, just because, you know, as I think most of us know, that terminology in programming is based on racist ideologies. So I will try very hard to refer to it as the primary branch. Y'all keep me honest, and please pop into chat if I ever slip up and call it something else. But I'm gonna select the source and make it the primary branch here. And what that's gonna do, or what it should do, is reload the page. And the reason why it's gonna reload the page is because when you scroll down, you'll see that you have a couple more options here. You can create a custom domain, which is really cool. But the most important thing is that you can go ahead and select a Jekyll theme right now. There are only a few options, but we're gonna go ahead and do that. So underneath where we chose what our source was, we're going to choose what our theme will be by choosing a theme. So I'm gonna click that choose theme button, and it's gonna load a new page. And here we get to choose what our theme would be. My favorite theme is Slate. I see the Slate theme a lot in GitHub Pages, actually. If you guys have seen professional websites anytime recently, you've probably actually seen this theme on a few websites. So this is great. Merlot is really good too. This is mostly for, I see this for a lot of like blogging, things that are like just like scrolled blogging pages. And minimal is also something that I see a lot, and it's for, I would say, mostly single page websites. But I'm gonna go ahead and pick Slate because it's my favorite. And I'm gonna hit this green select theme button. All right, so there are a few questions, and that was why I was so quiet for a second. So Pamela says she made hers private and is not seeing all the same things under that GitHub Pages section. Does private mean I don't see it? Otherwise, it takes me to a page to pay. So yes, unfortunately, sometimes when you pick private, you are kind of forced to go to like a pay screen. What you can do likely is go to settings and change that. So let's see if we can find that together really quick. I'm gonna go to settings, and I'm just gonna do a Control F and see if I can find, yeah. So the danger zone section all the way at the bottom of the page in settings, if you wanna change that visibility to public just for now so that we can explore, and then, yeah. All right, great. And then someone's not seeing a link to pick a theme. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit again and go to GitHub Pages. So this right here is where there should be a link to pick a theme. In the GitHub Pages section in settings, there's source and theme chooser. You should be able to click this change theme and it should load something that looks like this, where at the top you have a choice between themes. If that's not there, then that sounds like troubleshooting that we should do after the workshop. So thank you guys. All right, now you guys are probably on a completely different screen than me, so I'm gonna get back to the screen that you're in by going to my accounts and then going to what I just created, which I don't remember what it's called. I'm gonna go to repositories, and then it's Liz Grumbach. There we go. All right, so now what you'll notice is you have a README file here, and you have a configuration file here. This was automatically generated for you when you decided to create using the automatic page generator, a GitHub Pages site. And you can see on the right-hand side that actually it says that you are employing an environment now using github.com, and that's the GitHub Pages environment. So there are a few important things here that I wanted to point out, and then I wanted to experiment with you guys a little bit, showing you how to like add files and etc. The first thing I want to show you is that this README file actually has a little bit of a documentation portion for how GitHub wants to see markup. So instead of learning HTML, it's actually going to ask for Markdown. So Markdown is it's a really lightweight, it's really easy to use syntax. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to do things like put 2 asterisks around a sentence, and those asterisks will automatically mean that that sentence is in italics. If you put 2 asterisks and 2 asterisks at the end, then it will bold it, right? So you can kind of see that here. And actually there's 2 ways to do italics. You can do the underline too. But if you do 1 star, it'll italicize. So there's just a little shortcut here. We can experiment with that if we have time a little bit. But what I wanted to show you guys is what the configuration file looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that configuration file. And you can see that there's only 1 line here, and it just says that that you've chosen to use Jekyll and that you've chosen to use the Jekyll theme. You can get more complicated with this configuration file. You can do a lot of things with it. I'm going to just point you to it right now because we're going to hopefully see a different version of it when I pull it up when I install Jekyll from the command line. So I wanted you to be able to compare the 2 configuration files. And then I'm going to go back to my primary repository start page. And if you cannot find this page, what I would recommend that you do is if you're on a page where you can see up here that there's where your profile is, and you can click this. This is what my dashboard looks like. It's a very old picture of me. It says I still live in College Station, Texas. But this is the overview of what all of your projects are. You should be able to see your repository in the popular repositories. And again, maybe the easiest way to do that, on the upper right-hand side, if you click your icon, which is a picture of me, but might be a little red or blue circle for you, and you click on your profile, it'll bring you to a page that has that has popular repositories there. And under that popular repositories, there should be the repository that you just created. I'm gonna go back to my repositories list, and I'm gonna click on my repo. That's Liz Grumbach. And I'm gonna come back here. And if you're lost, don't worry about it. We can stay online and I can walk you through what happened. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna show you how to add files directly from this interface. Yes, once you find your repository, please do click on the name and it should bring you to something that looks like this. So it used to be that when you were using GitHub or Git, you had to do everything from the command line to push code up to the browser interface. Now you can add files directly from the browser interface. You'll see here, so I'm on the primary branch, but if I move over to the right, there's a go to file, there's an add file, and then there's a green code drop-down button. What you wanna click is the drop-down for add file. So you can do a couple of things here. This is where you can upload files directly, and if you are wanting to build an HTML website from the ground up, this is where you would add, just upload your HTML files directly here, and then you can build a website like that if you're a little more advanced. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new file together. It's gonna look really simple because we're gonna create a plain text file. So hopefully everyone's on the same page as me. Again, I'm gonna click that add file button, and I'm gonna, from that drop-down menu, click create new file. And it looks like this. It's basically a text editor, should pop up in your browser. You should first name your file. Your cursor should already be in that name file field. So it'll be Liz Grumbach / or your site name, your repository name /, and then we're gonna name that file. I'm gonna name it Push It, because Salt and Pep is in my head. And then that's all you need to do, just click out of that field and into your editor. So we're gonna edit this new file really quick. Oh, actually, you know what? We're gonna make this a text file. So we're gonna do pushit.txt. We could do pushit.md, which is Markdown, and we could put some of that Markdown markup language in here. We could do pushit.html and you know, put some HTML code in this file. But for right now, we're just going to make a plain text file, and I'm just gonna say pushit, and then my name is Liz Grumbach, and then I'm gonna put some tabs in. I'm just gonna play around with, you know, formatting a little bit, just so that you can see that tabs are allowed. Tabs are allowed. Mark. Okay, and now that I've done all of that stuff, I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom of the page to the section that says commit new file. Push it is not a command yet. The reason why I'm saying push it is because Salt and Peppa was playing at the beginning of this workshop, and so it's in my head. You could name this anything. You could name it grumbach.txt. You could name it salt.txt, and you could do anything. The name of the file should be meaningful to you. And then, so we're gonna scroll down to commit new file. So it's giving me a little prompt here because what it wants me to do is describe what I'm doing. So this is what's called like a commit message. So we're gonna say I created a text file to describe work. You can enter in an optional extended description here. If we kept typing in that commit message, it would eventually say that I'm out of characters. It only allows 50. So if you wanted to add like a more extended description of what you were trying to do, then you could do that here, but I'm not gonna do that now. And we're gonna commit directly to the primary branch. We're not gonna create a new branch. We're not gonna discuss branches today, but what I would point out about branches is that that's primarily for teams that are working on GitHub. For us, we're not going to worry about it. And I'm going to click this green button that says commit new file. And now that we've done that, we're going to do two things together. One, we're going to go to our GitHub Pages website that we created. And two, we're going to go to that text file on the internet. And I wanted to show you, one, what the GitHub Pages website looks like, and two, that you can add any kind of file that you want to this repository, to this page, and now it will automatically be hosted through GitHub for you. That means images, that means text files, that means TEI, if anyone is doing text encoding, XML, if anyone wants to host that kind of metadata, so anything. And that's because this is a GitHub Pages environment now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up a new tab in my browser, and I'm gonna go to the name of my GitHub account, which is Grumbach, which might be whatever you decided to register with, .github.io, and then I'm gonna do a slash, and type in Liz Grumbach, which is the name of the repository that I created with you guys. If you have this open in two tabs like me, you can see that Grumbach is the first thing you should type in, then .github.io, and then Liz Grumbach is the name of the repository, and it should go there. Hopefully you all can see that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and click go, and it should load my lovely README file here. So the README file is what you would change if you wanted to have your own content on this web page. So hopefully that worked for everyone. If it didn't work for you, let me know. The next thing I wanted to show you is how you get to the text file that we created together, which is just to type in your account name again, .github.io / I changed it from push it, and now I don't remember what it is, so I'm gonna go back, salt. / salt.txt, which is the name of the file. So whatever you named that file, whatever extension that it had, and then I'm gonna click enter. And of course it's not found, which is weird. I did something wrong. Oh, I forgot to put the name of the repository in there. Sorry, y'all. So in case you were looking at your screen instead of mine while I was trying to explain that to you, to get to your text file that you created, what you'll do is say your account name, which is for me is egrumbach.github.io. It will then be / the repository name that you created, which for me was Liz Grumbach. It will then be another / and it will be whatever file name that you created. But make sure that you put the extension, which for me was .txt, meaning it was a text file. And this loaded, which is good. Hopefully it loaded for everyone else. So that was like just a really quick, down and dirty introduction to how you could possibly use GitHub and GitHub Pages to host website content. What I'm gonna do now is pause for just a second, because the next part of this, I would like to spend the next 15 minutes giving you a glimpse at what it looks like to install Jekyll on the command line. I'm gonna pop back over to the PowerPoint and just keep this up for a minute. But in the meantime, are there any questions before I move on? We only have 15 minutes together. I knew this was gonna go really fast. If anyone else, I mean, I'm getting a couple messages that at least one person is got a little bit lost, which is fine. All right, cool. Thank you guys. All right. So I'm not going to talk about Jekyll a whole lot because we just kind of learned what it is. What I wanted to say though is that github.com might use Jekyll, but Jekyll is also a bit of software that is a static site generator. It helps you to create plain HTML websites without you creating and coding each of those HTML web pages by yourself using something like Dreamweaver or some other non-Adobe product. So just really quickly, I wanted to point to what I think is the best tutorial for how to use Jekyll and how to use GitHub Pages and Jekyll, which is a tutorial on the Programming Historian by Amanda Visconti. This does not do what we just did though. This tutorial is gonna do what I'm about to show you, which involves installing a lot of dependencies using the command line, which involves making sure that your environment is set up for you to be the admin and the owner of files, right? So there might be some issues that you guys run into as you're installing all of the things that you need to do what Amanda Visconti recommends that you do. But what I'm gonna do is show you what it looks like once you get past all of the installation of those dependencies. And hopefully that sounds good. So I'm going to do a new share really, really quickly because I want to do my entire desktop. You might be able to see the chat, which is not what I want. So I'm gonna close the chat really quickly. There we go. And so what I'm going to pop into now is actually my terminal window. And hopefully you guys can see this terminal window. It might be a little bit small. So I'm actually gonna share just the terminal window for now. There's a reason, which is why my afternoon has been a little bit intense, why you can see all of the things that I've been doing throughout the afternoon on here. But for now, we're just gonna pretend like the only thing that you can see is this line at the bottom of the terminal window, which is where the cursor is currently. What I wanna say real quick is that I'm gonna do this on a Mac. Some of you might be joining from Windows. Amanda Visconti's tutorial does have a lot of like interjections about like how Windows installations can go. So you're probably going to be using command prompt instead of terminal if you do this stuff, but most of the commands should be exactly the same because they're all going to run the same types of code. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call Ruby on Rails. And I'm gonna say, Ruby on Rails, please install something called the Jekyll bundle. And I might not be in the right directory. So before I do that, I'm just gonna check that I'm in the right directory, and I'm not. So where I should start from, and if anyone's interested in doing a command line workshop as well, I'd be very interested in leading that, is to say that you wanna make sure that you're doing all of your GitHub Pages and Jekyll work in the same repository all the time. And by repository, I mean on your computer, the same directory, the same folder. So for me, that folder is always a folder called dev, and that CD stands for change directory. So I'm gonna go into a folder called dev. And then from there, I'm gonna go into a folder called GitHub. And if I do a command called list, which is ls, I can see that these are all of my GitHub repositories that I have ever worked on or ever created. So I'm in that directory. And I see that I have a couple of chats, so I'm going to pop this open really quick. Oh, good. Okay, people are excited about command line, which makes me excited. All right. So what I'm going to do now is that Ruby command. I'm going to say gem install Jekyll bundler. This might be already installed. I might not have uninstalled it, so it might Oh yeah, and I have to do sudo. Does anyone know that great joke, sudo make me a sandwich? If not, maybe we can talk about that after. But that sudo command, terminal is trying to get me to prove that I own the computer by asking for my password. So it's installing right now after I proved that I owned the computer. All right, perfect. So now it's installed. What that means is now I can run Jekyll commands. So I can say things like, Jekyll, make me a new website now. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say Jekyll new, and then create a new site name. Guys, pop into chat. I'm so uncreative today. What should my site name be? And take your time, I need some water. Yeah, that's a good one. Tendo. So this command is gonna call on Jekyll, which I just installed, to create me a new website from scratch. We're gonna see what that looks like in a minute. So now if I do that list command again, which is gonna list out all of the folders in the directory that I'm in the folder that I'm in, you can see that it, by typing in that one command, it created this new folder called Tendo. If I change directory again and I go into that folder and I list what's in that folder, there's all these files that it automatically created for me. What those files did is it created a website. So what we're gonna do in a minute is we're going to prove that it created a website by opening up, creating a local server and opening up this website installation on my local computer as if my computer was the internet. We're gonna do that in a minute. But are there any questions or requests at this point? We have about 8 minutes, so. While you guys are typing, I'm gonna type the command. So what this command is gonna do is it's gonna tell Jekyll to start a server so that I can open up in my browser my local installation of the website that it just created for me. And it says server running. Really importantly, whenever you do a command like this in command line, what the text afterwards usually says is how you can get out of it. It's usually the last thing after you run something in the command line. So when I want to get out of this, when I want to stop running the server, all I have to do is press Control-C on my computer. But for now, I'm going to do a new share again. I'm just gonna share my desktop and I'm gonna show you what this Jekyll installation looks like because it's gonna look a little bit different. And it's going to be on localhost 4000. This Jekyll looks a little bit different. It looks a little different because this is actually the Minima theme instead of the Slate theme. I could change that really easily. But you can see here that there's a little bit more. This Jekyll theme, because we're not using GitHub's version of it, it assumes that what we actually want to do is create a blog. And so it automatically created that blog for us. If we started entering content into the folders that it's given us, that it automatically generated for us, what it would actually do is automatically order those posts chronologically. And you could just start filling out content. I would love to show the code for the new website again. Let me type it, let me see if I can type it into chat actually. And this is again in Amanda Visconti's tutorial. She's real clear. So it's Jekyll new, don't capitalize anything. Mac wants me to capitalize stuff. Jekyll new, and then you're gonna put in the site name. And I would recommend that when you create the site name, don't put any spaces or put an underscore in between. That's just gonna make it easier for your URL to be read by the internet when you push it live. Okay, so I have a question for you guys, which is, I can do one of two things with the time that I have remaining. I can show you a little bit about how to edit the things that Jekyll just installed on my computer so that you can customize what Jekyll gives you when you download that package and create a new website. Or I can open up Github Desktop really quickly and show you what the workflow is for you pushing your new website to the internet for it to be live. What would you prefer? Knowing that there are 4 minutes left. Okay, I got 1 vote for GitHub. And I got 1 vote for customize. Oh no. Okay, we'll do GitHub. Okay, I got 2 votes for GitHub. We'll do that. All right. Thank y'all. Okay, so what I'm gonna do really quickly is I'm gonna pop back into terminal and I'm gonna hit Control-C again just because I don't want that local server to be running when I'm pushing code. I'm gonna now open up a thing called Github Desktop. Github Desktop is a graphical user interface, which means that you do not have to learn how to do command line Git commands for you to push changes in your files to your github.com account. Now what you can do is download something like Github Desktop. If you don't like Github Desktop, my favorite is actually SourceTree. I find SourceTree a little bit more graphical, but it does have less help text. You can see here that there's a lot of help text in your GitHub Desktop graphical user interface, or GUI. What we're gonna do really quickly is I'm gonna show you what it would mean to take something that you've created on your local computer and push it to your GitHub account. What I've already done with this GitHub Desktop GUI is I've signed into my account already. And you can see that like I'm actually in a current repository that says please work because I was trying to test this out earlier. But after you sign in, you'll see something like this in your GitHub Desktop. And again, what you want to do is connect this GUI up to your github.com account. You're going to go to this kind of drop-down menu where you can either change the repository that you're working in, or you can add a new repository. There's a couple of options here. Maybe we can go over something like this if we do a Git workshop in the future, or a command line workshop in the future. But what I want to do is actually go to add existing repository, which seems weird, but that's what you definitely want to do, I promise you. And then you're going to choose the local path where you've been working in Jekyll on your computer. So if I click choose, hopefully you can see that what pops up is a Finder window, or if you're in Windows, it'll be a Windows Explorer window, I think. And I'm going to click on the Tendo folder or directory and click open. And that's going to automatically load the path to where I've been working on my GitHub Pages website. And it actually says this directory does not appear to be a Git repository yet. Would you like to create a repository here instead? And I'm going to say yes. There's a reason why I'm doing it this way, because it gets really, really complicated if you try to go from create repository first. So we can talk about that later if anyone has questions, but I'm going to click create repository. I want to just check that the name is right. The name is right. I want to check that this is right. It is totally right. I'm going to initialize this repository with the README file, which you always want to do. And then I'm not going to change anything else. I'm really just checking my work to make sure that everything is named correctly. And I'm going to click the blue button, create repository. And it's created. Now what that's done, and I referred to this earlier. Thank you, Pamela, it was good to see you. What this has done, and I referred to this earlier, is we modified those files on our computer. Now we've staged those files on our computer. So we've told Git that we're ready maybe to push, and now we're going to commit the files. And how we're going to do that is actually not by using this commit to primary. That is for, you know, later once you start changing the files in earnest. We're going to publish this repository to GitHub. So you can click this button up here, or you can click here, publish repository. I'm going to click here for now. And again, it's telling you to please check your work, put it in an organization if you want to. I don't want to. You can keep the code private. I'm not going to. I believe in open source, and then I'm going to publish the repo. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a new repository on your github.com account, just like we did when we started doing our hands-on exercise earlier. So if I go to my GitHub account here, I go back to like my dashboard and I go to my repositories list, there is now a Tendo repository there. If I click on it, it has all of the files that Jekyll auto-generated for me. And if I go to egrumbach.github.io/Tendo, hopefully, no, it didn't load. I did something wrong somewhere, but it should have loaded. And we're out of time. So I'll probably troubleshoot that later. But thank you so much for coming. I know a couple of people already had to leave. I'm so grateful for your time. And thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead.